Hey, I'm Andy Mason, and you're listening to the Heaven and Business podcast, where we help you navigate the messy intersection of faith, family, and business. And this episode, I want to unpack for you 5 decisions that I have made that have literally changed the trajectory of our lives, from getting into the career and the profession that we did, from moving from New Zealand to the United States, from moving to the East Coast, and then from moving from the East Coast to Nashville. Each one was a significant career, professional, workplace change that involved shifting community, shifting finances, huge engagement. So what I want to do is unpack that for you. And if you're in a situation right now where you're navigating decisions, you're in the middle of decision making, some of that's going to cost you, some of it is scary. What I want to unpack for you is this verse, Matthew 4:4 is, I don't live by bread alone, but by every word that comes from the mouth of God. There's a fantastic book called Decision Making, and it'll really help you. But the greatest decisions that you can make in your work, in your life, in your career, in your profession, in your ministry, in your organization is by listening to the voice of God. So what you're going to do is you're going to be encouraged by this. I'll challenge you in that. I'll give you a link at the end of this to a resource that'll really guide you step by step in this process to hear the voice of God. And you're probably going to laugh at me in some of it as well. So let's just dive right in. First, what you're going to see is this progression. So even from the first early decisions that I made, clueless, absolutely unconsciously incompetent, through to the most recent and hearing the voice of God, it wasn't unconscious. It was this conscious competence of listening and leaning in, counting the cost and embracing that. And I can look back now and say, wow, that was God. At the time, every single one of these was in fear and in trepidation, some more fear, learning to trust God in the process. And that is really a mark of spiritual maturity, knowing God, knowing his ways, and actually trusting him regardless of what you're walking in and through. So first decision that really defined, that was anchored in hearing the voice of God, is I was 13 and we had a missionary come through church. And I went to my mother afterwards and said, God spoke to me through that missionary's message that I'm going to go to university, I'm going to study agricultural science, and I'm going to be a missionary and help people practically as well as spiritually. I was 13. Now, full disclosure, I completely forgot about it, and I can't even remember saying that. But there's something about mothers that do. They hold these things in their heart. They steward it. So fast forward 4 years. I leave school. I do a 2-year cadetship. I come back to mum after that period of time and say, hey, I've decided to study agricultural science, and I'm going to develop in this international community relations track. And she says to me, well, yeah, that's what you told me 4 years ago. Did I? What's the point? Is sometimes if you just set your heart to seek the Lord, you'll find that you hear him, that you heard him without even realizing it. And there's people around you that'll help remind you of that and guide you in the way. So that was number 1 when I was 13. Number 2 is, this is probably part 1, part B, or call it 2, is when I left home and I was in a large training ranch. There's 20 cadets on this training ranch. There were 12,000 sheep, 500 cows, 8,000 acres, horse and dogs. It was brilliant. It was a boarding situation, and it was hostile from a Christian perspective. So literally first night I'm sitting on I'm dormed with one other individual in this cadetship program. First night, I kind of think I'm going to be bold. I'm going to make a decision to not just have a quiet, secret life following Jesus, but for it to be personal, upfront, and real. I just listened to Roberts Liardon cassette tapes on God's generals, and I thought, what's the difference between them and me? Well, they were bold about their faith. So I put my Bible on my desk. I've got my Michael W. Smith cassette tapes, and the first night, these guys from the second year of the program, there's 10 cadets in the first year, 10 in the second year, and you're bunked together. So like a senior and a junior. And that's like a mentoring relationship that you're staying and living, rooming, working with that person for the entire time. Well, the 3 of the seniors came and sat on my bed And I'm in a dorm. So there's two of us in this bunk room, and one's the senior, I'm the junior. Sits on my bed. These three guys, and they're like, "So, what's with this Bible? What's with these cassette tapes?" Hilarious. So, cassette tapes. This Michael W. Smith guy. He's a man singing about a man. So, are you gay? I'm like, no. So what about the Bible? Why have you got that? Well, I'm a Christian. I love Jesus. Well, what does that mean? Do you have sex? Do you drink? Do you smoke? It was brutal in terms of faced with that reality. It was the most difficult time of my life in terms of challenging my faith in what was real. At the same time, it was the best. Why? Because I would start to not just get a head knowledge about God, but I would actually start to get scriptures that pertain to what I was facing that day. I would be riding my horse out in the middle of nowhere, and I'd get songs about God. I sing, I play guitar. So I would start to feel what I now know as the presence of God. So decision number one almost got made without me realizing. I'm going to study agricultural science. I'm going to become a missionary and help people practically as well as spiritually, having no idea what that really meant. Decision number two was really this forging became personal. I chose to lean into the voice of God, what he was saying, anchored in truth, anchored in honoring him above all else, even though it was hard and difficult. And at the end of that first year, I won the top prize. That involved shouting a certain volume of substance at the local pub. And in the middle of that, I'm not drinking. Everybody else is, what I had to pay for. And the person that gave me the hardest time comes up to me and says, "Andy, I admire you for standing up for what you believe in. You've got guts, and don't take any blank from those guys next year." That meant more to me than winning the top prize. But more than winning the top prize, more than that compliment, was this personal relationship with God that was being forged on the inside of me. So if you're in a gap like that, where it's hard, it's difficult, it's adverse, welcome to Isaiah 43. You're chosen, you're loved, you're precious, you're called by name. God's going to ransom nations for you. He's going to set you apart. He's got plans and purposes for you. And when you walk through deep waters, when you walk through rivers, and when you walk through the fire, that's referencing the Red Sea crossing, the River Jordan crossing, and Daniel and Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the fire. When you walk through these hostile, adverse, difficult, life-threatening situations, know this, that God is with you in the moment, in the midst of all of that, actually leading you to a deeper relationship with him that is anchored, that you can be Psalm 16. I've set the Lord always before me, because I'm constantly aware of his presence. I will not be moved, or I will not be shaken. So number one, hearing God. 13, clueless. Number two, this personal depth of the personal word of God that became real to me in making decisions, choosing to then go to university and study agricultural science, becoming a business consultant in New Zealand, because I knew there's no way I could help people practically overseas if I'm not yet living that out in maturity and wisdom and expertise in New Zealand first. And so then we track, and I mean, that was, the first gap was 4 years. The second gap, 17 years. Now, I was growing in my maturity, growing in relationship. I got married. We had 4 kids. I'm growing, owning houses, developing wealth, serving customers. I'm growing in all of these different expertises. I'm serving in a local church, all of it. I'm growing. But there was 17 years before there was a life-changing moment of hearing the voice of God. And that was 2008. And we were praying about our future, my wife and I. Our children at the time were aged 2, 4, 6, and 8. And we just had this sense. So there was an uncertainty. So what led up to this? It's like things were going well. Their family, friends, we had babysitters within 10 minutes. Our finances were doing well. We had a trajectory and a course, but there's something on the inside that was unsettled, and I didn't know what it was. And so we spoke to our pastor. We're part of the leadership team. You know, is this changing? Is our role on some staff component or capacity here? And he said, no, I don't know where you fit. So I took a promotion to be a regional manager with the agricultural bank that I was working for. And within that, even starting, it's like, okay, it's not ministry. It's not this business role, professional role. What is it? And I was with a buddy overseas. We were going in and out of Uganda for successive times over 5 years. And we were the ones that learned the most. But this particular year, I had the sense that our job here was done. Leadership development, microfinance, orphan program, they were doing it. And I'm like, but I'm just perplexed. What is going on? And my friend said, Andy, what if it's not a change in either ministry or business? What if it's a geographic move? I'd never even thought that. So I come home. And in this case, I start to intentionally lean in and change the questions that we're asking rather than, God, what's going on? Where do you want me to be? I just changed it to a more proactive leaning forward decision or question. God, is our future in this location? And 2 days later, God speaks from Genesis 12, get out of your country, from your family, from your father's house to the land that I'll show you. How did he speak? Well, I was reading a Bible story to my 4-year-old son, and he chose it. He never chooses the story of Abraham. He always chooses David and Goliath or Samson or Daniel, these adventures, these fires, the floods and the threats and the scary things. That's what he chooses, not this wild adventure that Abraham went on. But this particular time, he chose that. And it wasn't just the words, it was the words came alive. That's Matthew 4:4. I don't live by the bread alone. I don't live by the business plan, the bank account alone, but by every word that comes from the mouth of God. That's what sustains me. So the greatest skill that you can adapt and grow in is how to hear the voice of God, because that is most important above all else. How can I have friendship with the God of all creation? If I'm called to be his child, then the most important skill is to know and hear his voice. So we lean in. And something on the impacts me on the inside. 2 days later, we've got a visiting speaker at church, and he opens up Joshua chapter 1, verse 2. Now arise, you and these people with you, and cross over the Jordan, the line of limitations that you've set on yourself, and cross into the land of risk and promise. We were asking God, is our future in this location? He was very clearly saying, it's a new location. And then 3, my wife, if you are married, you have a spouse, there is no decision that you're going to make alone. Make it together. Seek the Lord together. Friends of ours say the fastest way to multiply your influence and impact is to grab the hand of your spouse and pray together. There's power in agreement. So she just asked the Lord, God, what about, you've got these 2 words for Andy, but what about me? And instantly just has this thought in her mind, Jeremiah 3:14. She doesn't know what it says. Neither do I. She sits down, opens up her Bible and reads it. I will take you 1 from a city and 2 from a family, and I'll lead you to Zion, and I'll set shepherds over you according to my heart, who will feed you with knowledge and understanding. She just begins to weep as this realization, God is moving us, but where and when? And over the next 2 weeks, I begin to fast and pray, probably more out of fear than out of faith. But I'm terrified. Like, what, where, how, when? How am I going to pay for this? All of these are really practical questions. And God's just saying, trust me. It becomes very apparent. It's to move to California, to go through Bethel School of Ministry training program, and to sit under this guy by the name of Bill Johnson, who wrote the book When Heaven Invades Earth. I'd heard about him. I'd heard him at a conference. I was impacted by his relationship with God more than the miracles. There's something about his personal connection with God that really moved me. When he reads the Bible, he has this depth of connection and relationship that's so much deeper than many of the teachers that I've heard. So what is it about him? And why do I want to sit under him? And what does it look like when heaven invades earth? So all of these crazy questions. So that was decision number 3, defined and directed by hearing the voice of God, confirmed by wise counsel. And my wife and I, 4 little children, about 10 suitcases, leave New Zealand, and we land in Redding, California. It's called the armpit of California. It's literally, you might laugh at that, but it's literally the head of the Sacramento Valley, where it's the Lake Shasta, and then there's 2 mountain ranges that come out from that. And the city of Redding is nestled in the middle. So it's got this microclimate that gets up to 130 degrees. Like, that's like 40 degrees Celsius for you normal people. It's nuts. We land there in this environment. It's hostile in terms of climate. It's so hot, so dry. They have fires, there's smoke. They drive on the other side of the road. There's all of these different things. And yet, in the middle of that, we just had the sense we're supposed to be here. We don't fully understand why, but we know we're supposed to be here. We go through this crazy journey of trusting God, having no income, gradually and eventually coming on staff. There's stories behind that I don't want to highlight. But what was the point? We heard God. We made a decision. We leaned in. We were terrified. I didn't enjoy it as much as I could have because I was so afraid. How am I going to pay for this? What's going on? But in the midst of this, God was forging trust, dependence, surrender, humility, courage, all of these things that are part of following God for your life. Fast forward another 14 years, 13 years. I was age 35 when we moved. And then 13 years later, we'd built out Heaven and Business. Why? Well, how did Heaven and Business even start? Well, it was literally just, this is fantastic when heaven invades earth, but the current expression of that is running after sick people. There's got to be more than that. What are we doing for the business community? That was as a first year student in the School of Ministry. And the School of Ministry had no answer, but they connected me with a local business person. So two of us, myself and a guy from Canada, business guy, we got plugged into a local business and said, how can we serve you? You know, if you're wondering what's your purpose, what's your mission in life, find a need that you are passionate about and go and serve. It could be volunteering. It could be engaging. It could be creating a business in that space, but lean in and find out what is possible. And in all of it, just be asking God, guide my steps. Help me to hear your voice. Teach me to know your ways. So went from age 13, I'm going to be a missionary, help people practically as well as spiritually. I'm going to study agricultural science, age about 18, 19, where this is forging this personal walk with God, where I'm hearing the voice of God for myself that's sustaining me in the day-to-day. My enemies lay traps for me and fall on them themselves. Though the mighty waters rise, they will not reach me. God became personal and real to me. Number 3, leave everything and go to a new country. Number 4, we're now established in Redding, California. It's 13 years later. I'm now 48 and it's sweet. We've got Heaven and Business. It's working well. Our finances are going well. We're in a dream house backing onto miles and miles of trails and recreational areas. It's truly miraculous what's happened. The connection, we're now citizens of this country. We're engaged. We're growing. Influence, favor is growing. And yet something, well, actually at that time, there wasn't anything wrong. We're growing. Favor, friends, family. It's building out. The kids are growing up. They're doing really well. And we've got one, or actually two. One in the senior year of high school. That was Ben. And Holly was like a, what do you call it? A sophomore. That's the second year in high school. So she's got 2 full years of high school. She comes out of church one day on a Sunday, hops in the van and just says, I think our season here has ended. And we're like, what? What? What did you just say? She's just re-engaged with high school. She's doing so well relationally, emotionally. But what it does, it's now I can look back and I say it's like it took the blinders off me. I come home, I sit down that afternoon with a journal, and I just have these thoughts rolling around in my head. Well, if our season here has ended, what does that mean? And where would we go? And I have this thought, well, where are your clients? And at the time we were building Heaven and Business as a department of the local church. So that was a self-funded department and I'd paid a salary as a pastor. And just between you and I, that doesn't feed your family, but it's fantastic baseline. And then I was doing coaching, consulting of a series of individuals working one-on-one or in 1-on-5 and advisory. And that was a separate business that supplemented our income to fully fund our family. So those are the two things that are going on. And so this thought was, well, where are your clients? Well, and so I mapped out on a map of the United States where they were. First time I'm like, wow, America's big. And the majority of those, as in all of them, bar one, were on the East Coast. Plus 2 of our kids were talking about the East Coast. I'm like, oh, I wonder where would be central. These just series of thoughts were popping through my head. And so I just drew lines. How long would it take to drive or fly between these locations? And I've got this map intersected. And then what became apparent is Central would be somewhere between Philadelphia and Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. I'm like, wow, that's interesting. And I start to get this crazy sense of excitement. I'm like, whoa, 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 dial that down, dial that down. Talk to Janine, talk to the kids. And then obviously we got to talk to my boss, the person that was leading me at Bethel. So I call that person up. His name is Chris Valentin, strong leader. And I say, hey, Chris, God's speaking to me or speaking to us about expanding to the East Coast. Pause on that. When we're like, oh my gosh, God's moving us to the East Coast. This is crazy. I'm like, is this God? Is this me? And I sense God say, go back and read the prophetic words that he'd spoken to us 12 months earlier. 12 months earlier, we'd had a prophetic word from a group of people that was done blind. So what that means is 8 individuals that know, that trust, that walk with God, seasoned and mature, trained in hearing the voice of God. They go away. They're not told it's me. They're not told it's Heaven and Business. They're told that it's this organization, Company 892, and they're praying about their future. What do they stop doing, start doing, and keep doing? Very strategic, very tactical. That each individually go away, don't know who the others are doing this, come back, they compile what they hear, and it's synthesized or summarized. Well, that 2-page report is then given to me. And I sat on some of it. Some of it was like so helpful navigating COVID 2020, 21. It was so helpful, confirming, giving clues, clarifying, giving comfort and encouragement. But there was one thing that's like, that doesn't make sense. So I just parked it. Well, now I'm sensing the East Coast, expand to the East Coast. What does that look like? I go back and read that prophetic word, and literally it says, Heaven and Business is going to have a red pen on the East Coast. It's going to be a key to unlocking the cities of Philadelphia, Boston, and New York. And I just begin to weep. I'm like, oh my gosh, God, before I was born, you knew me. You made mention of my name. You laid out a path for me. Psalm 139, you know my thoughts before I think them, my words before I say them. It's ridiculous. You're better than I imagine. Exactly. So now I've got to talk with my senior leader who's leading me. So I talked to Chris. Hey, Chris, and this is what I'm sensing the Lord saying. I didn't say God said. I say, this is what we're sensing the Lord saying. 1, to expand to that or move to the East Coast. Number 2 is what do we do? What do we do with that? Number 2 is what do we do with Heaven and Business? Because technically it's owned by Bethel. When we built that, we heard God say, give it to Bethel. And that I felt like my life was over. But actually, in hindsight, the wisdom of God is the best thing that's going to help you and guide you, protect you, undergird you. And so I talked to Chris, and Chris said, well, let's just talk about Heaven and Business. Andy, you built it. I can't, speaking of himself, I had very little to do with it. Number 3, I can't see why Bethel would hold on to it. Number 4, you just take it with you. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what just happened? What we incubated and served another with for 10 plus years, we just got given. So we wrote that all out. We confirmed that. Wise counsel confirmed it. And that led to a journey to the East Coast, a 3,300 mile drive with 2 dogs and 4 kids, 2 vehicles. Crazy journey, crazy adventure. You can scroll back through historical podcasts and learn literally on the road what we're hearing as we're navigating that. Amazing words of knowledge that led us to where we were. But it's literally the middle of nowhere. It didn't make sense. We had this scripture, I've called you to other cities also. We go back to the prophetic words, I'm multiplying you. And what I can look back now and see is, number 1, it's not always about you. Maybe it's about your kids. What happened with our children over that time and launching them into what they are doing now was remarkable. That was unlikely to happen where we were. Number 2 is it was a significant pruning time. So when we were in Reading, we had Favor Connection. We were doing a school of ministry training track curriculum. We had local business prayer breakfast in the city, local business gatherings. We had all of the retreats, the venues, the training, engaged with the staff. We were doing incubators. We were doing so much, but it was all a huge amount of activity. And you've got to reflect activity versus fruitfulness. They're not all the same. Well, when we moved to the East Coast, we're the middle of nowhere. we're in a tiny church, and it's just like none of what we could do worked. It was different. Like it was almost like I opened my mouth, and it's like this pruning. If you have not read Necessary Endings by Dr. Henry Cloud, you've got to read it and pray favor, because we can ask him to conference next year. That would be incredible. But anyway, that's aside. So we go through this period. Now I can look back and say, thank you, God, because if I'd been planted in another big city, we'd have just got buried doing the same things. But God wants to do something new. And if he's going to do something new, he's got to cut off what is old, because otherwise you just by habit go back to that. So that's Isaiah 43. Go back and read that again. So we're there for 2 years. We're serving. And at the end of a local church Sunday service, there's this simple activity. Again, we're feeling unsettled, but we're thinking maybe it's a different location within Pennsylvania. And I do an exercise led by the speaker, the preacher at the church, where it was, hear the voice of God. What does he want you to know? So I'm like, God, what do you want me to know? Instantly, this thought pops in my head. You're more easily moved than you realize. I'm like, well, that's a good thing. So where are you moving us? Instantly, I see this picture of a hand of God on me, moving me south, like a joystick of a digger. I turn to my daughter and I say, if God was moving us, where would he move us? And she says, south. I talk to my wife, southwest. I talk to the other kids, south, southwest. I'm like, what? We're moving? What does it even look like? I start to come back and say, God, what are you saying? And realize for the previous 6 months, we've been with a focus group, pondering and praying and strategizing over how do we multiply ourselves? How do we multiply more kingdom leaders? And we get right to, we need something in person, something training the next generation, something that's going to raise the bar of what that looks like to multiply kingdom impact. And we go through that. And then we're realizing where we are, we're surrounded, we're lonely, we don't have a lot of in-person community. And so we're saying, God, if you're moving us south, where would be south? Well, Atlanta's south. Is Dallas south? Well, pretty much everything is south when you're talking the top of Pennsylvania where we were. It's like, where? It's like, what are those places? What do we need? It's got to be beautiful. What's beautiful? It's got to be, for us, beautiful is rolling green hills, moisture, mountain bike trails. A mountain bike trail is not flat, people. It's got hills to it. If you're going to run the hills, make it beautiful. So that's something that personal. It's got to be a place where we have community. It's got to be a place that's strategically central. Is there an airport? Does the airport go to multiple places? So we start to ponder and pray. And I was resistant at first. My wife's like, what about Nashville? No, everyone's moving to Nashville. But as we prayed and I listened to God as well as my wife, I realized God, it's strategically central, beautiful rolling hills. We have personal friends there. There's community, all of these things. It so fits what we're looking for. So I'm wanting to know, is this God? If this is God, I don't want to spend another 10 years playing how low can you go? God, I want you to connect me to the right people in the right place so that we can just get going and really accelerate in this. So I'm like, who would be the person that would welcome us and to pray for us, to bless us? Well, that would be the gatekeeper of the community. Who that be? Well, I know one of them is by name Don Finto. He's been around for a very long time, 94 years old. He was pastor for 25 years, and then he's been discipling people ever since, but phenomenal in terms of a favor influence in the region. So I'm like, God, if this is you, could that even be possible? Well, through friends, we get connected, we have dinner, and in the course of conversation, he just unpacks, yep, I was pastoring for 25 years, and the Lord spoke to me this verse from Numbers chapter 8, that shifted the trajectory of what we were doing, or what he was doing. So I'm like, what was that? And he said, well, Numbers 8, it's this passage where God tells Moses to tell the Levites, you're to work in the sanctuary from the age 25 to the age 50. At the age 50, you're to retire from the work of the sanctuary. You're to no longer do the work of the sanctuary, but you can guard and assist, mentor, deploy. disciple the next generation. As I listen to that, it's Numbers 8:23 to 26. I'm like, oh my gosh, that is exactly what we're looking to do. I am 50 years old. We are looking to train the next generation. We're looking at the 25 to 50-year-olds, lighting them up, and the 50 plus to activate them as mentors to develop, disciple, train the next generation. This is it. And then he says, welcome to the area, and praise and blesses us. What's the point? There's these 5 significant things that shaped the course of our personal history, of our legacy, our kingdom impact, our mission, our assignment, where we're going, each one of them anchored and listening to the voice of God. What's the point for you? I want to encourage you. I've grown in joy in the process, trusting that the outcome is with God. And even if I don't have money, and even if I don't know where, don't know how, my future is in his hands and I can stay close to him. It's going to work out, which means that I can probably have a lot more joy and fun along the way. It becomes an adventure rather than a mission that I could fail. Well, I can trust him. He's really, really good. So I encourage you, if you're in the middle of this, Isaiah 43, unpack that for yourself. Look at every area of that chapter. You'll see that it speaks to you. Number 2, grow in hearing God's voice. If you don't have a copy of this yet, it's called Listen Up, Hearing God at Work. It's our latest book, and it'll practically walk through how to hear the voice of God, how to know God speaking, how to define his voice from other voices, to know what to do when you hear nothing, and a bunch of real practical case studies that will actually help strengthen your ability to hear the voice of God. Grab a copy of that. And then make sure, comment below, send us any questions you've got, and I bless you to be encouraged and accelerated in your own journey with God at work.